So now let's start to think about areas and perimeters of composite figures. So here I have two figures that you may think of them as two rectangles put together, and it's really your choice. You may want to think of these two rectangles maybe in this way. So here's a rectangle that you can think of maybe. So I'm just going to draw a dotted line. So you can think of this as a composite figure, and you can think of this maybe as a composite figure like this. So you can think of this as a composite figure and this as a composite of two rectangles. Okay, so excuse me. So now we want to find out the areas and perimeters of these composite figures. Let's assume that each one of these squares, so I'm trying to draw these squares. So this little one square has side 1 meter. Okay, so each square has side 1 meter. So let's count the number of squares so that we can find out the dimensions of these rectangles. So let's start counting first. Let's count this first rectangle. Let me just label it A, B, C, D, E, F. So let's look at what is the length AB. So I'm going to count. So this is going to be 1, 2. So remember, I'm just counting. So if I count, I'm just going to count the number of squares. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this length really is going to be 10 meters, right? Because there are 10 squares here, so the length is going to be 10 meters. And similarly, as you go from B to C, if you count, there are 3 squares from B to C, so the length here is going to be 3 meters. And the length from C to D is going to be 5 squares, so this length is 5 meters. And the length from D to E is again going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So this length is going to be 4 meters. And the length from E to F is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to be 5 meters. And the length from F to A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, would be 7 meters. So now that we know the lengths, let's try to calculate the perimeter first. And I can probably make the background a bit less easier to see. So let's see. So what's a perimeter? So as I walk from A to B, I'm going to walk 10 meters. Then from B to C, it's going to be 3 meters. From C to D, it's going to be 5. From D to E, it's going to be 4. From E to F, it's going to be 5. And from F to A, it is going to be 7. So now I've walked from A to B to C to D to E to F and back to A. So the answer is going to be, I can add all of them up. It's going to be 13 and 5, 18 and 4, 22 and 5, 27 and 7. So the total distance that I walked is going to be 34 meters. Now if I want to find the area, this is not hard to find again. And what I can do is I can find the area of, maybe I have two rectangles, so I can find the areas of each one of them, because remember, area is just the number of squares that fit in. And if I show you, you're really adding the number of squares that fit into maybe, so you're going to add the number of squares that fit in here with the number of squares that fit in here, and if you do so, then you'll get the right answer. So the blue area, the blue squares and the white squares will add up to give you the total number of squares in the shape, right? So we can say the blue area and the white area add up to give you the total area. Okay, so let me make the background back to something which is visually easier to visually easier to deal with. And now let's find out the blue area and the white area. So the blue area is easy to calculate. I have a rectangle which is of side 5 and of side 3. So I know that there are going to be 5 squares horizontally in each row, and there will be 3 rows. So that means the total area will be 3, 5. So we have already calculated this answer, and that's going to be, the blue area is going to be 15 square centimeters. And then in the area in the vertical rectangle, which has sides 5 meters and 7 meters. So I'm talking about this rectangle with 5 and 7 centimeters. So in the white area, if I want to calculate, I'll have 7 rows, and in each row there'll be 5 squares. So that means I'll have 7 fives, which is going to be 35 squares here. So the total answer will turn out to be equal to 50 square meters. And let me just remind you of how we did this. So if you look at this, so this is what I was saying, that there are, if I look at the blue rectangle, there are 5 squares in the first row, 5 squares in the second row, and 5 squares in the third row. That's why I get 3 fives, which is 15. And if I look at the white area, they're going to be, it turns out there are 5 in the first row also, 5 in the second, 5 in the third, 5 in the fourth, 5 in the fifth, 5 in the sixth, 5 in the seventh. So I'm really adding 7 fives, and 7 fives is 35, so that's why I get 50 meters squared. Now we can play the same game with the green rectangle, and I'll just count the green rectangle in front of you. So it's fairly quickly we can count the length. Let's call it P, Q, R, S, T, U, and let me call this point maybe V for convenience. So this is the point V. So let's calculate the length PQ. So if as I walk from P to Q, how many squares do I encounter? I encounter 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So this is going to be 10 meters. From Q to R, I'm going to encounter 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to encounter 4 meters. So as I walk from R to S, I'm going to encounter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is going to be 8 meters. From S to T, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 meters. So now I am going to walk 2 meters from T to U. So this is going to be 2. And then I am going to walk 11 meters from U to P. I could have broken it up from U to V, which is 7 meters, and V to P, which is 4 meters. I'm just going to say it's 11. So let's add up the perimeter. So it should be 10 plus 4, 14, and 8, 22, and 7, 29, and 2, 31, and 11 is going to be 42 meters. Okay, so the perimeter of the green shape is more than the perimeter of the red shape. Okay, but now let's look at the area. Now we can calculate the area here. So let me remind you, I'm thinking of this as 2 rectangles, the rectangle PQRV and the rectangle VSTU. So there are 2 rectangles. So let's look at the yellow rectangle. So I'm going to color this PQRV as the yellow rectangle. So this is the yellow rectangle, and I want to find out the area of the yellow rectangle. Well, remember, there are 10 squares in the first row, 10 squares in the second row, 10 squares in the third row, 10 squares in the fourth row. So I really have 4 tens, and that's really shown by, this is 4 tens. So the 4 meters are the 4 rows, and the 10 meters are the 10 columns. So it's 4 tens. So the answer is going to be exactly equal to 40 squares, or a different way of saying it would be 40 meters squared, because these are 40 squares of size 1 meter each. Okay, so I have the yellow area, and now let me try to get the blue area. So here's the blue area, and now note the rectangle VSTU is a rectangle which has 2 squares in the first row, 2 squares in the second, 2 squares in the third, 2 squares in the fourth, 2 squares in the fifth, 2 squares in the sixth, and 2 squares in the seventh, which means it has 7 twos, and you know that 7 twos are 14. So 40 plus 14 leads to an answer which is equal to 54 meter square. Okay, now note, I want to remind you that all that we did was, for area, we were just calculating the number of squares of side 1 meter. Okay, and that's how we got the answer.